Are the Trey Murphy expectations too high? Are they too low, or are they right where they need to be? Got my OG and one of your favorite people, David Grubb, here with me to let us know. We're going to talk about it.
You must know that first. Can't nothing and nobody fade what we trying to do and what we about to do. Second thing is, we got this game on our level. You understand what I'm saying?
Welcome to another episode of In Space with Chris Conner. I'm your good and humble host here. Special guest, just recorded with him a couple days. You know, he's a year older, but don't look it. OG, owner of Heart in the Paint. It's a company now. It's a podcast. A lot of wonderful content coming out. I'm seeing Maddie on my timeline along with you every single day. Also, a lead writer with MLBBro.com, which I also see on my timeline every day, which I love seeing. My OG and a real good friend and mentor in my process, my growth, David Grubb.
It's good to be back, brother. It's always fun to get to talk to you. So especially, you know, when we get to do it on your platform. And so I love coming on here, knowing how far you've come with this.
Thank you, man. Woo, boy. I mean, I think about it all the time, man. For those, I've talked about it before, but I always love these stories, man. And more so as like notes for anybody that watches me or watches Grubb and they think like, man, I could never even do that. It's not to say that, you know, that what we're doing or what I'm doing is the best it will ever be. But I've talked to people that sometimes like, nah, man, it's not for me. I don't feel like, you know, I have this problem, or, you know, I stutter, I do this, I do that. And I tell them all the time, like, yo, I wish y'all could listen to or read the first thing I wrote, or listen to some of the earlier things that I did on podcasts. It takes work, but if you love what you're doing, you're passionate, we are living testimonials of what can be. And we ain't done, you know. But let's get into it, man. I did a show, I want to say about a week and a half ago about Trey Murphy, and it was mainly about what the next leap for him could look like as a player here in this league. But a lot of that was based around the offseason hype that, I mean, it's not just a local trade now. I mean, it's you know, national writers and lover of the game that have a lot of different positive things talk about Trey Murphy and talking about breakouts, and you know, he's on the select team, and we've seen the videos. You can see he's gained some weight. It's going to be some offensive changes here. Welcoming in a few different people on the staff and James Borrego. But the downside to that is that with that, there are expectations. And sometimes this is the perfect time for those expectations to get high or too high. Grubb, I'm just going to flat out ask, it's in the title. You can say what your expectations are currently for him going into his third season. But I do want to know, in your opinion, are they getting a little bit too crazy?
I think for next year, yeah. You know, I think this upcoming season, we got to understand, like, you know, if you're anticipating the Pelicans being whole, if that's what people want, and you're anticipating that all of your core players play at least 65 games. Let's say that. We're not counting 70. We're saying 60 to 65 games. If all of your core players play that, you can't have four guys averaging 20 plus points a game. It's not going to happen. It's just not. So if Zion is going to be a guy who's putting up 25 points a game for you every night, if BI is going to be putting up 25 points per game for you every night, if CJ is going to give you 18 to 20 points per game every night, which is what he still should be able to give you as your third leading scorer, if Jonas is giving you as a starter 12 to 15 points per game, there are only so many shots to go around. You know, it's like, I'm sorry, that's just a fact. And Trey will still probably not likely be the starter this season. I just don't think that the Pelicans are going to unbalance the lineup that way and put him in the starting lineup. But that doesn't mean statistically, if he's not having these, you know, crazy numbers as far as his per game averages, that doesn't mean he's not being an effective player, and he's not potentially a sixth man of the year candidate, still a most improved player candidate. But statistics, I think we're getting too caught up in worrying about what his numbers are going to look like rather than what his influence on the court will be.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? I think a crucial element of this conversation is centered around the leap that he had in production last March of last season, in April, where he averaged between, let's see, March he averaged 18 per game, averaged 23 per game in a few games in April, but he shot 45% from three, 50% from the field. 90, like everything was up. Everything from shot attempts, he almost doubled. And I talked about it a little bit in the previous show. He doubled his numbers, his totals, and that minutes included in that month versus any other month in his career. But the thing about that is, you like you mentioned, the team wasn't whole. And CJ McCollum was out there playing with a bum hand and a bum shoulder. So you didn't even have the full version of him. You welcome Zion back into things, and Trey had some really good moments when Zion was there, and Zion was playing at his best, but Brandon wasn't there. So you really haven't had an opportunity to see, specifically, as you mentioned, if he's coming off the bench, exactly what that looks like. And folks are talking about, oh, this kid can average 20 points per game, or he can, he can potentially be an all-star. And I get the belief in the talent. I think he has, I talked to his dad, Kenny, a little bit from time to time here, and we talk about it. But Kenny would tell you, it's a step-by-step progress here, process. When people were ready for him to jump in from year 1 to year 2, Kenny will tell you, I don't think he's there yet. He's still got to add some more weight, and he had to add some more weight. I think he's getting into I think this year he'll probably feel the best, of course, and he should go into year 3 that he's felt in the league. But as you mentioned, that doesn't, with the full roster, that doesn't mean that you're going to see March's numbers, because where are the shot attempts consistently going to come from with that kind of offensive firepower on the floor?
Yeah, that's why I like for him to be with the second unit, because there are more shots there for him. That's where he can hunt his shots, and you can set up things specifically for him and allow him that space. Because whenever he's playing with that group, if he's playing with BI and Zion together, he's not getting as many rebounds as he normally would get, because he's got to stay out. And let's also remember, teams now have film on him. So it's not just the coaches around the league are going to adjust too. They're not going to give Trey the same kind of space that they gave him. They know that he can finish around the rim. So guys are going to be looking to put a body on him in space more than they did last season. Some of that you can't do. You know what I mean? Like, you could plan for everything, but guys are just physically able to outdo. But now there will be game planning for Trey Murphy III. He is a known commodity around this league. He's not a guy that you think if he gets hot, he's a problem. He's now a guy you don't want to let get hot. And that's a much different thing for an offensive player to have to deal with.
So let's talk about some other ways that, he can, live close to the hype that people have for him, right? It may not be simply from scoring. Of course, with the history that this team has from an injury perspective, he'll have his opportunities to start and to, put up some shots and give you several moments that look like last season. And when the team is healthy, they're going to need Trey attached with Brandon and Zion for as many minutes as possible. And CJ talked about that in the spaces when people asked him, like, hey man, what is it going to take for you to average, 9 assists or 10 assists? Like, somebody flat out asked him, like, why do you shoot so much? And he said, one of the things he said, look, you want me to average 10 assists, we're going to need our guys healthy, or Trey's going to have to play a lot of minutes, and I was moved by that. But one of the things that's been attached to his minutes throughout his first couple of years has been his defense, his struggles that he's had there, playing as Willie Green being his head coach, and in some respects, I would say rebounding as well. I think that if you have high expectations, and I mean, I'm one of those people that think he's going to have a marvelous year, but it may not look like 15 points per game. But let's say he just averages 12 or he averages 13 or whatever the case may be, but the rebounds go up. he's more effective on the defensive side of the floor. You seeing him block, block more shots. You seeing that weight show out a little bit more, not getting pushed around in the post. I think he can be just as effective, if not even more, than just a guy that's going out there having the opportunity to shoot the ball 16, 17 times a game.
The key for him is maintaining his efficiency. Do his percentages stay high? Does he take the right shots? Can he get those opportunities where he's just taking that one dribble, putting it down, and then pulling up and taking a shot, whether it's still behind a three-point arc or whether it's coming in and knocking down a mid-range jumper? Is he going to get those opportunities again on the offensive glass, like you talk about, and in transition? That's where he's got to run the floor and create extra shot opportunities for himself by doing that. And I think, like you said, defensively, the key for him is always going to be how good a two-way player does he become. Because if he becomes a very good defensive player, then you can play him at the 3 and 4 regularly. And that's the spot is where he's going to end up having to play a lot of that stretch 4 for the Pelicans, because you have BI at 3. You don't want Herb off the floor defensively. So where does that best opportunity? You all talk about those small ball lineups, with Zion at the 5, that means Trey's playing the 4. And if he's going to play the 4, then he's got to be able to attack the glass. So if he, people have often compared him to a Rashard Lewis in that regard and developing in that way, where Rashard was a 7 rebound a night guy. And you could count on that. So that's the next step. And can he give you, we know he can block shots, but can he do that on a regular basis? We know he can get steals. Can he do that on a regular basis? Because at his length, with that size now, yes, he should start becoming a problem defensively. Now, you're not expecting him to be the leader. You got an all-world defender in Herb Jones. But these guys are close enough now that Herb should be, telling them some of these techniques, and Trey has to start applying them. And like you said, we both talked to his pops, and he said year 4. That's what he always said was year 4. He always said year 4. He said that's the year. Because, quite frankly, when you look at the way this lineup is built and the way that the transition is going, that should be about the time, because BI will be in that place again that we've talked about of, is he going to be the guy? Trey is supposed to force you to make that choice at the end of that 4th year. That's exactly where you want him to be, is that you got to decide, do he and BI become a great tandem? Does he surpass Ingram? Does he do these? That's what you want at the end of that 4th year. So let's not rush it. Let's not make him have to take on a responsibility that he's probably not ready for yet. He's got to learn how to be an every night NBA player before we start talking about what his ceiling is. And we still have only gotten a hot month. I'm saying we got a hot month. That means they still have to learn how to play with this guy, and they all got to learn to play together. And like you said, the adjustments to Borrego's offense, these things take time. And we'll have to see how it develops for the Pelicans, because we know starts have not been, their forte.
So let's talk a little bit more in detail about the defensive side of the floor for him. While I think him getting a little bit stronger and not being moved, I think he picked up a lot of fouls just being pushed out of position immediately, then trying to recover or being manipulated into foul calls. Maybe not always him having the wrong technique and him not being aggressive enough, him just not being strong enough, depending on who he was going up against.
He didn't have a great base.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about it. When we talk about consistency, let's start on the defensive side of the floor. Let's say he's added 5'10" pounds. I think the last time I talked to Kenny, he said he was somewhere around 215, 220ish. That was like the goal, like for this year. What do you think is going to be important night to night? Because that's a big point in every day and every night player. What do you think are going to be some of the elements on ball, off ball that he's going to have to be better at in year 3?
It all starts with his legs. Like he's light, and we know he's quick as far as his jumping ability, but it's that ability to stay down in your stance and not get turned. And Trey is so long. That can be hard for him sometimes on the perimeters to stay down. And particularly, it's what coaches in basketball always say, keep your ass down. You got to keep your ass low. And when he gets in trouble, it's because he's leaning forward and his back is up a bit, and you can push him in that regard. So he's got to keep his behind down and be able to look up at his opponent when he's defending out on the perimeter, rather than getting himself a little too tall. But I think that's something you can learn, and that's something that comes with discipline and just, I think, adjusting to his body too, because he has continued to grow. And as you said, you have to continue to adjust to who you're becoming physically. He hasn't gotten to the point where he's going to be physically. And I think the other part is going to be, we have to start seeing them thighs get a little thicker. You know what I'm saying? We got to see it. That's the next part. The shoulders are broadening, the chest. You got to see his thighs get a little thicker so he can defend, particularly when he gets posted up, because that's going to come. He's going to have to defend some fours in the post.
Nah, good. I totally agree. I think on the other side of the floor, it's going to be interesting. If you know that, let's say when the team is whole, or even when they're not, right? If Zion's missing games and Brandon and CJ, if 2 out of the 3 of your quote unquote big 3 are healthy, you're not going to have a bunch drawn up for you. I think that there are efforts that the team can make if whether even when the team is healthy to keep Trey involved, but some of this he's going to have to get it out the mud. So a lot of the things that we talked about, you mentioned early in the show, his ability to rebound, and maybe that may mean rebounding and go and being able to attack in transition. He was one of the best transition players in basketball by the numbers last season, simply as a shooter. But being able to rebound and have an opportunity to get things going could help him as well. Because I mean, as we talked about a couple times here, in the show, I mean, those players aren't stupid. They know now. Everyone knows. All right, our success is going to partially be tied to this guy because he's going to have a lot of opportunities to shoot the ball if we're out there because of the attention that mainly Zion and Brandon, but even CJ are going to garner just from a game planning perspective. And when you get out there, even the good teams, they sacrifice giving up things that they don't want to. They would rather give up a 3-pointer than a layup. That's just the case. Everybody talks about yes, the team definitely needs to be a better shooting team, from not just from a volume, but a specialist perspective. I think some of the guys that are currently on the roster need to get better, but I've seen a lot of times, even when JJ Redick was in New Orleans, where when Zion had the basketball, they would leave JJ Redick to try to make sure Zion didn't get a layup and would end up at the free throw line. That's just the reality. That's what you're taught to do. Don't give up the layup. So, but he may have to be more creative. And one of the better ways that he can do it is, like you mentioned, being on the boards, being active there, and that's for anyone that's there. That the ability, Zion is one of the things we've harped on about Zion being a rebounder, is that you are such a weapon from the time that you get the basketball in your hands. You can have an effect on so many games by just rebounding and running the floor, whether you're giving it up or whether you're running it, taking an angle to the basket. So good stuff there.
Chris, hold on. I just want to say real quick, that opposite side glass is always there too when Zion is on the floor, because he's going to get his offensive rebound. If he misses and it's short, he's got it. But everybody's paying attention to him that way. And so for a guy like Trey with that athleticism, if it goes long, if something goes off that other side, he's able to finish with 2 hands and come back on that, or 1 hand, whatever, and get back up there and get putbacks. But yeah, he's got to be active on that opposite side. And that comes from, they have to share more minutes together, because even you total up all the time. We talk about Zion playing with BI and Zion playing with CJ. That's even fewer minutes that he's played with Trey. Like, how many minutes since Trey has been a Pelican have he and Zion actually played together? So learning to read those things, that's one of those pieces of nuance that takes time. You have to see where that ball is coming off. You have to know where that guy is posting up, and they just haven't done that a lot.
Moving forward here, we'll close out talking BI and Team USA. I'm really interested in your thoughts on this. Not just from the Team USA perspective, but if we focus a little bit on Brandon, when you watch these games and you're thinking about what's going to translate and what's not, so far Brandon's been kind of a glue guy, right? In these few exhibitions, few rebounds here, few assists here, 9 points, not really in a different role from what you're used to, being in the corner. He's being a secondary offensive player on a lot of different sets, getting a lot of his looks and opportunities either off ball or just in the flow of the offense and transition. But it's been a little bit more active defensively. It's clear that that's something that is required. And when you look at the staff, and when you look at Spoelstra, when you look at Tyler, you look at Steve Kerr. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that that's something that they are going to want and demand out of you. You've seen them active, a little bit on the glass in regards to blocking shots. Looks a bit stronger. What are you looking to gather out of Brandon? Some seem to want him to take rings of this and be the best overall player. Others just want to see what are some of the things around the edges that he can gain, that he can bring back to New Orleans. I mean, for training camp, the schedules are going to be released maybe as soon as next week. Training camp is going to start soon after that for him a little bit later. But we're talking, less than a couple months before this team ends up getting ready to play actual basketball.
Yeah, I think for BI, I'm not worried about if he's the leading scorer for Team USA. I mean, look, you look over the years, Charles Barkley was the leading scorer in the 92 team. Does anybody remember that? You still think of Jordan and Pippen, and it's, even though Charles is phenomenal. Carmelo Anthony is the leading scorer in Olympic history, but I don't think most people remember that for Team USA. Ultimately, what you want to see from BI is that he gets it about winning. This is an opportunity to finally win something. There are precious few opportunities for these guys to learn with stakes, like with actual stakes. And so you take a lot of these young players, there's not an MVP amongst them. None of these guys have made it to the top level of the NBA. And that's, again, unusual for a Team USA. Usually there's a Hall of Famer amongst you. We don't know who that is yet. One of these guys probably will be, at least one, probably a handful. But we don't know who that is. So BI is an older guy in this group. This is an opportunity for him to lead, because more than anything, the Pelicans need from him this season is leadership. It's not Larry. It's not CJ. It's not Zion. BI's been here the longest. Everybody he came with is gone, right? Everybody he came with, whether they were the rookies, whatever. Only Zion is left. But he's clearly played so many more games than Zion since he got here. This has to be the year that he takes ownership. And it starts with this Olympic group where he doesn't have to be the leading scorer, but he has to be the most mature guy in the room. He has to be willing to do all the little things, like in that Kobe Bryant role where Kobe came in and was an older guy. He wasn't going to be the leading scorer of Team USA, but he said, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to set the pace every day so that guys know. If there are things that BI needs to learn when it comes to working out, then he needs to pick those up. But he needs to be the first guy in. He needs to be the guy leading in that regard. He needs to be the guy listening. When there's a huddle, he needs to be closest to the coaches. He needs to be setting that example, because that's what I want him to bring back from this experience. I don't care about his shooting. I don't care about his scoring. I want him to come back as a better basketball player and a better leader, rather than adding more skills necessarily to his game.
Listen, 100%, but agreed. I think it's the things around the edges. Of course, the game's play, but I think it's the things around the edges. I think this is a critical juncture in Brandon Ingram's career. Of course, the elephant in the room is the contract extension, and he's going to get his money. But you have an opportunity to take, like you mentioned, to win something, and then return back to a team that has enough top level talent, if healthy, and they can figure it out in jail to compete for something as well. You being that individual, you being the one that people look at, as the leader, you would like it. It should come for you. It shouldn't. I was thinking the other day, I was like, it's cool that CJ McCollum and Larry Nance are leaders in the locker room, right? You brought them in. They've been in the league. They've accomplished a decent amount as veterans in this league. But 9 times out of 10, man, the teams that are left standing in the end, they're leaders. Where it comes from, it's one or two. I mean, more times than not, that's it. It comes from your best player or your second best player. Those are the ones. And I'm hoping that this step for Brandon is just another element, being around greatness, being around other great players, having an opportunity to play and win something and seeing what it takes, the sacrifice involved, can bring that back to New Orleans for a team that has a lot on the line this year. I don't think it's any roster-wise has a lot on the line.
Well, organizationally too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is so critical for the front office. It's critical for the organization trying to get or getting the arena redone. You can't keep losing and ask the state for money. Like I'm just serious. It's the Saints are opening this, and refurbishing the Superdome, and you see all this investment that's been made, but there's Super Bowls still coming. There are events still coming. There's all these things that are there. If you want hundreds of millions of dollars invested again from a state that's one of the poorest in the country, you better start winning something. And that's just the fact of the matter. And you've got, as you said, there's too much talent for you to not at least be in the playoffs with this group. If you're relatively healthy, again, we can't do nothing about if people miss seasons. Can't do nothing with that. But if you're relatively healthy, there's no excuse for this team to not be a certified playoff contender.
Well said. Yo, man, for the listeners here, you guys know I'm talking to a CEO. This is the first CEO. This is the first CEO that I've had on my show. I feel the CEO of Hard in the Paint Sports Media. Now, Grubb has, I mean, all right. I had to make a list of all the things that he's contributing at right now. It's a busy man, full-time father at that. All right, so it's a lot going on here. All right, so we're talking Hard in the Paint, of course. Wherever you find your podcast, you will see it. Again, we just did a wonderful show a couple days ago about hip hop, basketball, 50 years of hip hop, the bird rights. We got. I mentioned MLBBro.com. I forgot the show with Terrence Copper, Believe Network. Wonderful. Like, I mean, I don't know how he finds time for all this, but
and then 4 days a week at WBOK.
And
from 4 to 7.
I don't know how you find time. He got more hours than my day. He definitely got more hours. Different clock. Shout out to Reggie Floyd, another one of my OGs and mentors in this game. Watching him work, and that's a great pairing there. So please, y'all got a chance. Grubb, tell everybody where to find you at, what you got upcoming next, and then we'll roll out.
Yeah, you can just you can find me wherever on social media at DM Grubb, and then look for HITP Sports on YouTube and X and Instagram as well. And check out the other stuff we got going, like the Bird Calls and Before the Whistle with Maddie Hudak. And we're going to be adding more. I'm just really excited because I look at what's going on with independent media, whether it's Boot Crew, whether it's New Orleans football, whether it's New Orleans basketball now, and them continuing to grow. There's something going on, man. There's something going on, and we're taking control of the messaging, and some quality product is really rising to the top, I think, in local independent media. And I'm excited to be a part of that, and excited to give people opportunities to do what they do.
Man, that's love. I'm happy. One of the people I tell Grubb all the time, he is one of the, he's one of the people that I am most happy to see win. He deserves it, man. He's been through, in my short time of seeing him and talking with him, I've seen some of the things that he's been through, and he always bounces back to better things. And this is only what he's doing right now with Hard in the Paint Sports Media. Is just the brink of it. But again, I just told you about 75 other things in which he's doing on the side. So shout out to you, Grubb, as always, man. You always know it's love, OG. By the time this is out, I think this will be out either Monday or Tuesday. I got something else coming for y'all this week, but appreciate all y'all as always. Like, comment, subscribe. Got to give love to our good people here, DraftKings Sportsbook, Jägermeister, Birdsall Law Firm, all the people that support us. You were in space. Now you out.